Just drag you back in time 10 years, a smidgen over 10 years. Golden Sullivan have just taken over West Ham at this point. You've all seen the pictures, you remember him? David Sullivan in a little claret jacket, being paraded in front of all and sundry at Upton Park, and a big press conference. Sky Sports News, Jim White, yellow ticker tape banner along the bottom. It was a big story, a big news story. Of course, there was the 10-point plan, the 10-point pledge, whatever you want to call it at the time. Which is, we've discussed that many times. But during the press conference, there was talk about the Olympic Stadium and about going for the Olympic Stadium. Obviously, we're a couple of years before the Olympics is due to be held at this point, and there was certainly an indication. They didn't guarantee that they were going to go for it, but I think their words were it was an option that they would certainly be looking to go for. As time started to wind down, it became more and more evident that they were going to go and try and put West Ham into the Olympic Stadium. It was an opportunity too good to miss. Of course, that's what they were saying. They had explored all the avenues of expanding Upton Park, and so on and so forth. Now, you will not convince me that that wasn't the plan all along. There was never any intention to stay at Upton Park. In fact, I am of the opinion that if there were it wasn't even any Olympics in London. Someone else another country got the Olympics. I don't think Golden Sullivan would have taken over at West Ham United. Where would it be now? Who knows? But the Olympic Stadium was everything. Now, obviously, if it was just a love of West Ham, then they would have taken over West Ham regardless of whatever division, regardless of whether there was a 60,000-seater stadium being dangled. Now, I also have to say that originally the plan was for us to buy the stadium. The agreement was in place. We'd come to an agreement to buy the stadium. Daniel Levy and Barry Hearn lobbied until they made it so difficult, and they found a judge to rule in their favour, that eventually the Olympic Stadium was put out to tender as a rented property, if you like. Yet still, they went for it. Now, it's quite clear to me that the plan was, they're not silly people. They are business people, they're money people. The stadium's unsustainable. As a public entity, it is unsustainable. It's like the Millennium Dome, which has now become the O2. They built it all for the Millennium celebrations, didn't know what to do with it afterwards. It was called a white elephant. You'd find exactly the same with what's now called the London Stadium. So, with that in mind, I think they thought, we're going to buy this, and eventually, whoever's running it will become so skint, they'll try and wash their hands of it, and they'll say to us, do you know what? You have it. That's what I think has been the dream all the way along. That's been the business plan. But I think it's taken longer than they ever imagined. I think when Golden Sullivan came into West Ham, I think they probably would have been thinking, 10 years, we're out, sell up, big profit, we're gone. But it's dragging and it's dragging and it's dragging. But make no mistake about it, whilst I do believe that, I think they like going to games. I think they've probably found their whole venture fun. I do believe David Sullivan does little else but sit in his office and deal with the football. I do believe the plan was to leave and make I was going to say a quick buck, but a good buck, and many of them. I'm just wondering now, reading the latest article from the Price of Football, whether or not that dream, the dream of Project West Ham, as they would have probably thought of it, is just gone. That's dead in the water now. West Ham have just been valued, and these are last year's figures, okay? So if you look at the graph, you'll see that Fulham are in there and so on and so forth. 248 million. Now you'll know that it's dragging on a bit, the Newcastle deal, but the Newcastle deal looks to be about 300 million. It was never, ever the intention for West Ham to move to the Olympic Stadium, sell Upton Park, and for us to be worth less than Newcastle. No way. Obviously, the owners were hoping to propel us to a situation and to a valuation where we would be, maybe not Man United or anything like that, but certainly closer, you felt at the time, to 500, 600, 700 million, something like that. Now, there's a number of things that have gone wrong along the way, and I do think that the current situation is probably the final straw that's broken the camel's back on this one, because I think the move to the stadium not being as successful as it was has dropped the valuation. I think the troubles we've had, I think the disconnect between the board and the fans, I think how poorly the club have been performing on the pitch. If you looked at Gio's video, the Tifo football video, the fact that we're not very good at making a profit on players, at producing what in essence is a profitable football club, I think they've all been massive hindrances to the valuation of the football club. I also think the fact that we couldn't buy the stadium outright was huge. If we owned that stadium now, that price wouldn't be reading 240 odd million. That would probably be reading 540 odd million. So I think it was an odd thing to do to press ahead. But I've given my reasons why I thought they did it. Which is, I thought in the end, the mayor's office would just turn around and say, you have it. It's not happened. I still think it probably will at some point in the future. But it ain't going to be the quick turnaround. Say quick turnaround, 10 years, that they hoped it would be. It may be something that drags on for 20 years. It may take another 10 years for the mayor's office to try and wash their hands of the stadium. I've gone before, I've spoken before, I think there's going to be precious little appetite for throwing in any more public money. People talk about we're about to enter a recession. It's probably going to be more like a depression. So where does that leave West Ham? And more to the point, where does that leave our owners? And where does that leave our situation as fans with our owners when football eventually gets back up and running? Because whilst that might say 240 now, 240 odd million, whatever it is, that's pre-lockdown. That's pre-pandemic. What's the valuation of West Ham now? Which is why it's weird that Newcastle are getting sold now. That's a weird one, right? Let's be fair. Mike Ashley probably would have taken, in another 6 months' time, Mike Ashley might have taken 200 million for that football club. Particularly off the back of the prospect of possibly no football for quite some time. There isn't actually a Premier League. To quote somebody else's phrase, it's an empty shop. There's nothing for sale at the moment. It's a weird time to buy a football club. No one's going to really want to buy one, you'd think, which is why I think this is quite an odd time for that to happen. But what's the valuation of West Ham? I don't think West Ham is worth 200 million now. So you're then into the realms of, well, how much profit are the owners going to make? If they sold it at that, would they still make a profit? Yes, there would be some profit there, because don't forget they've been taking money on interest and all that sort of thing. But are they going to have the desire to do so? I don't think they're going to leave. I don't think they're going to get a bid. So I think they're stuck. I've said before, I think we're stuck with them and they're stuck with us. But bearing in mind, I think the motivating factor for taking West Ham forward throughout the last 10 years, or at least them trying to take us forward, has been that eventually they would make West Ham appear so attractive that someone would come in and buy. Where's the motivation now? It's got to be a right mess running a football club at the moment. This is going to be a hard job. There's no doubt about it. The players' wages are a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. Did they take a couple of months deferrals? Well, I think a month of that is probably gone. Maybe it was 3 months for us. I don't know. But in either 1 or 2 months, there's a massive wage bill waiting to be paid. So that's the normal wage bill, plus all the deferred payments, because these were deferrals, not pay cuts. That's going to make a club very, very difficult to manage. There's going to be tough decisions. They are probably going to have to come to agreements with players to pay off their contracts or something like that. They may well have to let players go who ordinarily would command a transfer fee. So the value of football clubs is only going one way. There's going to be no certainty at all. Even if they did get football up and running in 3 or 4 months, it would only take one person to get sick and it all closes down again. Because it would just have to. And then what are they going to do? What about malpractice? What about lawsuits? What about that sort of thing? You just don't know, particularly if there's people that haven't wanted to do it. Particularly if it's really gone against government guidelines, against World Health Organization guidelines, all that sort of thing. It's going to be a very, very difficult thing. So the value of the football club just goes down and down and down. And what then for West Ham? What then, once it is up and running, it's that long slog, that long haul again. So you look at the owners, and whilst they might have thought we're in this for 10 years, 11 years, 12 years tops, we get in, we sell Upton Park, we move to the Olympic Stadium, we become attractive to a rich foreign investor, and we sell, they're now looking at maybe being involved in a club for over 20 years, where for a lot of the time they've not been wanted. For the majority of the time it has not been successful. There's been some relegations, there's been some flirting with some relegations, there has been a massive turnover of staff, a massive turnover of managers, a massive turnover of players, most of which have not been successful. And going forward, almost nothing to look forward to. No trophies, no sales, no nothing. So I do wonder, what's the future for West Ham? What's the future for West Ham with a relationship with the owners? And certainly, you look at it and you think, this is it? To think that you might be stuck, if you've bought an investment over 10 years, and think you might have to be stuck with it for 20 or 25. That ain't good.